What if the reason you haven't reached your goals has nothing to do with motivation, not your work ethic, not your willpower, not your talent or your intelligence or how badly you want it? What if the problem and the solution is far smaller than you ever imagined? That's the central argument James Clear makes in Atomic Habits, published in 2018, a book that has sold over 20 million copies, been translated into dozens of languages, and fundamentally changed the way millions of people think about self-improvement, productivity, and the science of behavior change. The word atomic has two meanings. It means small, as in the tiny, invisible particles that make up everything around us. And it means powerful, as in nuclear, foundational, explosive. Both meanings apply here, because Clear's central thesis is this: small habits, compounded over time, are the most powerful force available to any human being. This isn't a book about motivation. It's not about inspiration. It's not about setting bigger goals or dreaming harder. In fact, Clear argues that goals, as most people use them, are almost entirely the wrong thing to focus on. What matters are systems. What matters are the tiny decisions you make every single day. Decisions so small you barely notice them, that quietly construct the person you're becoming. Today, we're going to walk through every major concept in this book, the frameworks, and the practical tools, so that by the time you're done listening, you'll have a completely new understanding of why you do what you do and exactly how to change it. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Surprising Power of Tiny Changes. Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine you could get 1% better at something every single day. Just 1%. Not a dramatic transformation, not a life-altering breakthrough, just a tiny, barely perceptible improvement. Now do the math. 1% better every day for a year, compounded. The result? You end up roughly 37 times better than when you started. Not 37% better, 37 times better. The same math works in reverse. Get 1% worse each day, and by year's end, you've declined nearly to zero. This is the magic of compounding, and most people completely miss it. Because improvement at 1% per day is invisible. You cannot see it in the mirror. You cannot feel it in the moment. The feedback loop is too slow for our brains to register. And so we dismiss the tiny actions. We skip the workout because missing one day won't matter. We eat the bad meal because a single indulgence won't derail us. We procrastinate because 1 hour lost won't ruin the project. And we're right. One day doesn't matter. One meal doesn't matter. 1 hour doesn't matter. But the pattern matters enormously. Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. When you plant a seed, nothing happens for weeks. The roots are spreading underground, invisible, silent work. And then one day, the sprout breaks through. It looks like sudden growth. But it was never sudden. It was the accumulation of all that hidden progress finally becoming visible. Most people quit in the valley between starting and seeing results. They work hard for a week and see nothing. They expect a straight line of improvement, and when the line stays flat, they lose faith. They call themselves failures. They say the plan didn't work. But the problem wasn't the plan. The problem was expecting visible results before the compounding had time to do its work. Clear's message is simple but profound. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that brings us to one of the most important distinctions in the entire book: the difference between outcome-based thinking and identity-based thinking. Most people set outcome goals. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a novel. I want to run a marathon. And there's nothing wrong with having these goals. But goals, by themselves, are fragile. They're destinations without maps. You hit them or you don't. And either way, the goal tells you nothing about what comes next. The deeper approach, the one Clear argues actually works, is to focus on who you want to become, not what you want to achieve. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. Go to the gym once, that's one vote. Go twice, 2 votes. Miss a week, votes in the other direction. You are constantly casting ballots in an ongoing election about your own identity. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a novel. The goal is to become a writer. When identity leads, behavior follows naturally because you're no longer fighting your habits. You're expressing who you are. Chapter 2, How Habits Actually Work. The 4 Laws. To change your habits, you first need to understand how they work. And here, Clear builds on decades of behavioral science to give us one of the most practical frameworks in modern self-help literature. Every habit, he explains, follows a 4-step loop: a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. The cue is the trigger, the thing that starts the habit. It could be a time of day, a location, an emotion, another person, or a preceding behavior. Your phone lights up. That's a cue. The craving is the motivational force. It's not the habit itself you crave, it's the change in state. The habit delivers. You don't crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the relief from stress. You don't crave scrolling social media. You crave the stimulation and escape. The response is the actual habit, the thought or action you take. Whether you perform it depends on how motivated you are and how much friction stands in the way. The reward is what you get at the end. Rewards satisfy the craving, and they teach the brain. This sequence is worth remembering. Repeat it. This loop, cue, craving, response, reward, runs in the background of nearly every behavior in your life. The morning coffee, the afternoon snack, the bedtime phone check, the stress eating, the procrastination spiral. All of them follow this exact pattern, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Clear's genius is in translating the science into 4 actionable laws. Each law targets one stage of the loop, and each law can be used in 2 directions: to build a habit you want or to break one you don't. The first law: make it obvious. Cues drive behavior. If you want to build a new habit, make the cue visible. Put the guitar on the stand in the middle of the room, not in the closet. Set your running shoes by the front door. Leave the book on the pillow. Environment design is one of the most underrated tools in behavior change. We like to think we make conscious choices, but the truth is, we're largely responding to what's visible and accessible around us. The second law: make it attractive. We are more likely to repeat behaviors associated with positive feelings. To make a habit attractive, try temptation bundling, pairing a habit you need to do with something you genuinely enjoy. Only listen to your favorite podcast while doing laundry. Only watch the show you love while on the treadmill. The brain learns to associate the habit with pleasure, and over time, it begins to want the habit. The third law: make it easy. This is possibly the most counterintuitive law in the book. We assume building good habits requires discipline and willpower. Clear says no, it requires removing friction. The easier a behavior is to perform, the more likely it is to stick. He introduces the 2-minute rule. When starting a new habit, scale it down until it takes 2 minutes or less. Want to exercise daily? The habit is put on your workout clothes. That's it. Don't commit to an hour at the gym. Commit to getting dressed. Once you're dressed, you usually go. The habit is the entry point, not the full performance. The fourth law: make it satisfying. We repeat what feels good. The brain is wired for immediate rewards, and most good habits deliver delayed rewards. Exercise makes you healthier in 6 months. Saving makes you wealthy in 20 years. The brain doesn't feel that. It feels the discomfort now. So you need to attach an immediate reward to the behavior. Track your habit. Put a check mark on a calendar. Use a habit tracker. The satisfaction of marking that box is a real, immediate reward, and it builds momentum. And to break bad habits, reverse every law. Make it invisible. Make it unattractive. Make it difficult. Make it unsatisfying. Delete the app. Put the junk food in a hard-to-reach cabinet. Add friction to the bad behavior the same way you remove friction from the good one. These 4 laws are the engine of the entire book. Everything else is elaboration. Let's go deeper. Chapter 3: The Hidden Power of Environment. Here is something most people will never tell you about behavior change. Your environment is more powerful than your willpower. We want to believe that we make decisions freely, that when we choose to eat the cookie, it's because we decided to eat the cookie. But research consistently shows that behavior is heavily shaped by the environment we're in. The cookie on the counter gets eaten far more often than the cookie in the cupboard. The beer in the fridge gets drunk more than the beer in the store. Not because we're weak, but because proximity is a trigger, and our brains are built to conserve energy by acting on what's nearby. Clear tells us that every habit has a home. Certain behaviors get associated with certain locations, and those locations become cues. If you always watch TV in the bedroom becomes a cue for passivity. If you always work at your kitchen table, the kitchen table becomes associated with productivity. If you always eat on the couch becomes a trigger for eating. The implication is powerful. One of the most effective things you can do to change your habits is to change your environment. Or better, assign specific spaces to specific behaviors. Use your desk for deep work. Use your living room couch only for reading. Train your brain to associate places with particular states, and those places will start to call those states out of you automatically. This is also why it's often easier to build new habits in new environments. When you move to a new city, join a new gym, or start a new job, you haven't yet built associations. The slate is cleaner. The old cues that triggered your old behaviors aren't there. You have a window to install new patterns before the old ones reassert themselves. Clear introduces a concept he calls context cues, the idea that stable environments produce stable habits. Astronauts returning from months in space report that old Earth habits come flooding back within hours of landing because the environment is the same and the cues are all still there. Recovering addicts are told not to return to the neighborhoods where they used because those streets are saturated with cues. Environment doesn't just influence behavior, it shapes identity. There's another idea here that deserves special attention: the people around you. We are deeply social creatures, and we unconsciously adopt the habits of the groups we belong to. If everyone in your social circle exercises, you will exercise. If everyone in your office snacks constantly, you will snack. If your partner stays up until midnight, you will too. This isn't weakness, it's social contagion. And it works in every direction. Clear says, join a group where the desired behavior is the normal behavior. Want to read more? Join a book club. Want to run? Join a running group. Want to build a business? Surround yourself with entrepreneurs. You don't have to fight the social current, you can use it. The single most effective thing you can do to change your behavior long-term is to change who you spend your time with. Because habits are contagious, and the most effective cue is often another human being. Chapter 4: Habit Stacking and Implementation Intentions. One of the most practical tools in the entire book is something Clear calls habit stacking. Here's the insight behind it. Your brain is already wired with hundreds of established habits. You wake up and immediately check your phone. You pour your coffee and sit in the same chair. You finish dinner and turn on the TV. These are grooved neural pathways, deeply automatic, running without conscious thought. Habit stacking uses those existing grooves as anchors for new behaviors. The formula is elegantly simple: after I do current habit, I will do new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 2 minutes. After I sit down at my desk, I will write 1 sentence. After I brush my teeth at night, I will do 5 push-ups. You're not creating a new habit from scratch. You're attaching the new behavior to an existing routine. The existing habit becomes the cue. And because cues are the most powerful part of the loop, you've solved the hardest part of habit formation before you've even started. Related to this is a concept from behavioral research called an implementation intention. Studies show that the simple act of deciding when and where you will perform a new behavior dramatically increases the chance that you'll actually do it. Most people have vague intentions. I'll exercise more. I'll eat healthier. I'll get to bed earlier. These are wishes, not plans. An implementation intention turns the wish into a commitment. I will go for a 30-minute walk at 7 a.m. every weekday, leaving from my front door. The specificity creates a mental picture, and the mental picture makes the action automatic when the conditions arrive. When 7 a.m. comes and you're at the front door, the plan already decided the behavior for you. You don't have to negotiate with yourself. You don't have to summon motivation. The plan runs like code.combine habit, stacking with implementation intentions, and you have an extraordinary tool: specific, time-anchored, location-anchored behavioral commitments chained onto existing habits. This is how people who seem effortlessly disciplined actually operate. They've engineered their environment and their schedules so that the default action is the right one. Clear also introduces the concept of the decisive moment, The fork in the road decisions that seem small but set the direction of everything that follows. Choosing to drive past the gym instead of in. Choosing to open social media when you sit at your desk. Choosing to pour a second drink. Each of these decisions gates access to what comes next. The gym visit leads to a workout. The social media click leads to an hour of scrolling. The second drink leads to a late night. Design your life around making the right decisive moments, the path of least resistance, and the downstream behaviors take care of themselves. Chapter 5. The role of identity in lasting change. We touched on identity earlier, but it's important enough that we need to go deeper, because this is where most approaches to habit change get it completely backwards. The conventional approach works from the outside in. You decide on an outcome, you adopt a process to reach it, and somewhere along the way, you hope your identity catches up. Clear argues for the opposite direction. Work from the inside out, decide who you want to be, then prove it to yourself with small wins. Every time you perform a behavior, you cast a vote for a particular identity. Drink a glass of water, you vote for being a healthy person. Write a paragraph, you vote for being a writer. Close the laptop at 6 p.m., you vote for being someone who values rest. One vote doesn't decide the election, but 1,000 votes. 1,000 votes change who you are. Here's why this matters so profoundly. When change is identity-based, it becomes self-sustaining. The smoker trying to quit says, "I'm trying to quit." An ex-smoker says, "I don't smoke." The language difference reflects a deeper shift. The second person doesn't have to resist every cigarette through sheer will. They're just acting in alignment with who they are. This is also why people who struggle with habits often struggle in a particular way. They're trying to have outcomes without being the person who produces those outcomes. They want the body of a runner without running. They want the bank account of a saver without saving. They want the relationships of a generous person without practicing generosity. Outcomes are lagging measures of habits. Your bank balance is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. The outcomes will come, but they follow identity, not the other way around. Clear also acknowledges something important here. Your identity can become a trap. If you believe you're not a morning person, you won't try to build morning routines. If you believe you're bad with money, you won't bother learning to invest. If you believe you're not creative, you'll stop before you start. These stories we tell ourselves are just accumulated habits of thought, and they can be rewritten through the same process. Small, consistent actions that vote for a new story. The question to ask is not, what do I want to achieve? The question is, who do I want to become? And what is the smallest action I can take right now that the person I want to become would take? Start there, just there, and let the identity build one vote at a time. Chapter 6, Advanced Tactics, the Goldilocks Rule and the Plateau of Mastery. So you've started new habits. You're stacking them, designing your environment, linking them to your identity. Things are going well. And then, suddenly, they aren't. The motivation fades. The habit feels boring. You start skipping days. You wonder if this is just who you are, and whether the whole system was a naive fantasy. This is not failure. This is a well-documented and entirely predictable stage of habit development, and Clear gives us the tools to get through it. The first tool is what he calls the Goldilocks Rule. Human beings experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are just at the edge of their current abilities. Not too easy, that produces boredom. Not too hard, that produces anxiety. Right in the middle, at the edge of comfortable difficulty, the brain enters a state of engaged focus. Peak performance researchers call this flow. Clear calls it the Goldilocks zone. This has a practical implication for habits. As you improve, the habit needs to grow with you. If you're running every day and it's become effortless, it's time to run farther. If you're meditating for 2 minutes and it feels trivial, go to 5. If your reading habit is solid, but the books feel easy, level up the difficulty. The habit must evolve to stay in the engagement zone. The second idea here is one of the most important in the book and one of the most misunderstood. Clear says, the greatest threat to success is not failure. It is boredom. When you read about elite performers, Olympic athletes, world-class musicians, exceptional entrepreneurs, you might imagine that their lives are filled with burning passion every single day, that they spring out of bed, energized and inspired, eager to train. They don't. They show up when they're bored. They show up when they're tired. They show up when they're frustrated. They show up when every part of them would rather stay in bed. The difference between professionals and amateurs is not talent. It is the willingness to act when action feels least appealing. Professionals follow the schedule. Amateurs follow the mood. This is a hard truth, but it's also a liberating one, because it means you don't need to feel motivated to act. You need a system that runs even when motivation is absent. That's what habits are: pre-committed decisions about how you'll behave, regardless of how you feel on any given day. Clear also describes what he calls the plateau of mastery. When you begin a habit, improvement is rapid and visible. Each session produces noticeable gains, and then it slows. You're still improving, but the improvements are invisible, happening inside systems too deep to feel. This is the plateau, and it's where most people quit. The breakthrough always lies on the other side of the plateau. The person who stays, who shows up for the boring sessions, the invisible progress sessions, the why am I even doing this sessions, eventually breaks through into a new level of capability. And the person who quit just before the breakthrough never knows what was waiting for them. Chapter 7, Never Miss Twice and the Art of Recovery. Let's address the thing that happens to everyone who tries to build habits. At some point, you miss a day. Life intervenes. You get sick. You travel. Work explodes. A crisis arrives. And the habit, the carefully built, environmentally designed, identity-anchored habit gets skipped. And here's where most people make the real mistake. Not the skip. The spiral that follows the skip. You miss Monday. Fine. But then you feel guilty. And the guilt makes the habit feel heavy and loaded and associated with failure. So you avoid it Tuesday too, because you're not ready to face the heaviness. And by Wednesday, the streak is gone, the momentum is broken, and the inner critic is saying what it always says. See? You can't stick to anything. Clear offers a remarkably simple antidote. He calls it the never miss twice rule. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit, a habit of missing. So the rule is not perfection. The rule is recovery. You are allowed to miss. You are not allowed to miss twice in a row. This reframes the entire relationship with consistency. Consistency is not a streak of unbroken, perfect days. Consistency is the pattern of returning quickly when you fall off. The master of habits is not the person who never struggles. It's the person with the shortest gap between stumbling and getting back up. He also addresses habit tracking here, the practice of logging your behaviors daily. There's a risk in habit tracking that Clear identifies clearly. You can start to optimize for the metric instead of the behavior. You go to the gym and do a perfunctory session just to put the check in the box. You journal one sentence and close the notebook. You've maintained the streak, but you've hollowed out the habit. Clear's reminder: never let maintaining a record become more important than performing the underlying habit well. The tracker is a tool, not the target. When the measure becomes the goal, it stops being a good measure. He also distinguishes between motion and action. Motion feels like progress. Reading about exercise is motion. Making a plan is motion. Researching the diet is motion. None of it produces results by itself. Action is what produces results. And the risk of motion is that it creates the feeling of progress without the reality, which can actually reduce the urgency to take real action. The antidote, again, is simplicity. Reduce friction. Start small. Take action today. Even 2 minutes of real action beats an hour of planning. The 2 minutes produces evidence. The evidence builds identity. The identity drives the next action. The machine runs on action, not on intention. So what to do right now? Atomic Habits is not a book about heroic transformation. It is not about becoming a different person overnight. It does not promise you a life makeover if you follow 10 simple steps. It promises something quieter and far more powerful, that if you get your systems right, the life you want is not a matter of willpower or luck or talent. It is a mathematical inevitability. The 4 laws are simple enough to write on a napkin. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. Make it satisfying. Reverse them to break what doesn't serve you. Stack your habits onto the ones you already have. Design your environment so the right choices are the easy ones. Attach your habits to an identity. Vote for who you want to become, one small action at a time. And when you miss, and you will miss, don't miss twice. James Clear ends the book with an idea that is both humbling and profound. He says, "Purpose of setting goals is to win the game, but the purpose of building systems is to keep playing the game." True long-term thinking is not about any single goal. It is about the cycle of continuous refinement and improvement. You are not trying to achieve a destination. You are trying to become the kind of person who achieves naturally, automatically, as an expression of who you are. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way money multiplies through compound interest, your habits multiply through consistent daily repetition. The results are almost never immediate, but they are almost always inevitable. You don't need to be extraordinary to change your life. You just need to be consistent, one tiny habit at a time. Which habit will you start with today? If this narration brought you value, subscribe, share it with someone who needs a reset, and drop a comment below with the idea that landed hardest for you. We'll see you in the next one.